Hello children, today we are going to discuss chapter How do organisms reproduce? So first, what is reproduction? Reproduction is the process by which living organisms produce new individuals of same species. Reproduction is necessary for the survival and the increase in the population of particular species. If organisms do not reproduce, their population will decrease and species will become extinct. Do organisms create carbon copies of themselves? The DNA molecules in the chromosome in the nucleus is responsible for the transfer of characters from parents to their offsprings. During reproduction, the reproductive cell produces two copies of the DNA which separate into two cells. The DNA copies will be similar but not identical to each other. So, the new individuals have slight variation from their parents. And this is the basis for the variation and evolution of new species. What is the importance of variation? DNA copying during reproduction is important for maintaining the body design of different organisms to survive in existing environment. But environment is changing constantly, and due to the change, these are the changes because of the change in temperature, climate, and water level. If organisms cannot adjust themselves to the changes in the environment, then their species will become extinct. If there are variations in some individuals of species, they may be able to survive in present environmental conditions. So, variation of species is necessary for the survival of different species and for evolution of new species. There are different types of reproductions like asexual and sexual reproduction. First, we will discuss about asexual reproduction. This is the reproduction in which new individuals are produced from single parent. Sexual reproduction is the reproduction in which two individuals are involved to produce new individuals. Example of asexual reproduction are fission, budding, regeneration, fragmentation, spore formation, vegetative propagation. These all are asexual reproductions. First, we will discuss about fission. Fission is an asexual reproduction by which a unicellular organism divides and forms two or more individuals. Fission is of two types, binary fission and multiple fission. Binary fission is the method in which organism divides to form two individuals. First, the nucleus will divide and form two nuclei, then cytoplasm will divide to form two daughter cells. The example of binary fission is amoeba and paramecium. Multiple fission, in this method, one organism divides into many daughter cells like plasmodium. This is the example of the budding. Binary fission. This is the example of the multiple fission. Next, we will discuss about budding. In this method, a bird-like structure is formed on the body of the organism. The bird then develops into the new individual, then it separates from the parent and form an independent individual. The example of budding is hydra and yeast. Regeneration. In this method, the part of body of the organism is cut or broken and can develop into a new individual like hydra and planaria. Fragmentation. In this method, the body of a simple multicellular organism breaks up into smaller pieces on maturation, and each fragment will develop into a new individuals. Example is Spirogyra. See, these are the fragments. After separation, these fragments will develop and survive as a new individual. Spore formation. In this method, structures called sporangia produce very small cells that are known as spores. When the spores come in contact with a moist surface, it develops into new individuals. Example, Rhizopus, Mucor, and Penicillium. Vegetative propagation. In this method, new plants are produced from the vegetative part of the plant like root, stem and leaf. From root, sweet potato, dahlia; from stem, potato, ginger; and from leaf, bryophyllum and bignonia. Plants produced by vegetative propagation produce flowers and fruits earlier than those produced from seeds. It also helps in propagation of plants which do not produce seed like rose, jasmine and banana. Vegetative propagation can also be done artificially by cutting, layering and grafting. This is the leaf of the bryophyllum. Now, sexual reproduction in flowering plants. First, we will discuss reproductive parts of a flower. The stamen and pistil are the reproductive parts of the flower. Stamen is the male reproductive part. It produces pollen grains in the anther, which contains a male gamete. Pistil is the female reproductive part. It produces ovules in the ovary, which contains the female cell, that is gamete. Now, pollination. The transfer of pollen grains from anther to stigma of a flower is called pollination. It takes place by wind, water, or insect. If pollen grains are transferred from anther to stigma of the same flower, it is called self-pollination. And if it is transferred from the anther of one flower to the stigma of another flower, it is called cross-pollination. Pollination takes place by insect, wind, and water. So these insect, wind, and water are the agents of the pollination. Fertilization. After the pollen grain is transferred to stigma, it produces a tube-like structure that is known as pollen tube. And via pollen tube, these male gametes will enter, and these male gamete fuses with the female gamete and zygote will form. This process is called fertilization. After fertilization, zygote divides several times and forms the embryo, when then develops into the seed, and the ovary will develop into the fruit. Reproduction in human beings. First, we will discuss male reproductive system. The male reproductive system consists pair of testes, which produces the male reproductive cell, that is sperm, and the hormone testosterone. It contains a sac-like structure called scrotum. From each testis arises a tube that is called vas deferens. It joins into the urethra, and the urethra is enclosed with a muscular organ that is called pens. It has an opening called genital pore. The seminal vessels and the prostate gland produce fluid which provide nutrition and help in the movement of the sperms. This is the structure of sperm. This is head and tail. So the body of sperm consists two parts, head and tail. Female reproductive system. The female reproductive system consists a pair of ovaries which produces the female reproductive cell, that is called ova or egg, and the hormone is estrogen. Above the ovaries, tube-like structures are there that are known as oviducts or fallopian tube. The two oviducts unite into a bag-like structure called uterus. The uterus has opening called vagina. Fertilization in human being. During sexual intercourse, the sperm from the male enter into the vagina of the female. The sperm reaches the oviduct. One sperm fuses with egg and form zygote. The zygote then get implanted into the uterus, and this zygote will start dividing, and at last embryo will form. The embryo gets nutrition from the mother's blood through a placenta. The development of the child takes 9 months time, then a child born. This is the stage of the development of embryo. See, ovary will release egg. If this egg is fertilized, then it becomes heavy, and after this, gradually it will come towards the uterus and it will stick with the wall of uterus. Then it will convert into the placenta and child will develop. Menstruation. The ovary produces one egg every month and then uterus prepare to receive the fertilized egg. Its wall becomes thick and spongy with blood vessels for nourishing the embryo. If fertilization does not take place, then the uterus wall breaks and comes out of the vagina as a blood and mucus. This cycle takes place once every month and it's called menstruation. Now, what is reproductive health? Reproductive health means healthy body for reproduction. If body is not healthy, then different type of diseases are possible in the body. That diseases are known as sexually transmitted disease, that is STD. So these are the disease transmitted through a sexual contact, and they may be bacterial infections like gonorrhea and syphilis or viral infection like warts and HIV. Prevention of pregnancy, that is contraception. Pregnancy can be prevented by three main methods. They are barrier methods, chemical method, and surgical method. Barrier method consists of using condoms, diaphragm, cervical caps, and copper T. Chemical method consists of taking drugs like oral pills and vaginal pills. Surgical method consists of removing or tying a small part of the vas deferens in the male, that is known as vasectomy, and fallopian tube in the female, that is known as tubectomy. So, dear children, this is the explanation of the chapter, that is how do organisms reproduce. Thank you.